Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Garibaldi Red podcast, a Nottingham Forest podcast. I'm Max Hayes, your host, and today very happy to welcome to the podcast Graeme Bailey, who works across the transfer news for hitc.com. You'll be familiar with that site if you follow football. Graeme, good to see you. Thanks very much for joining us. How are you, first of all? And I suppose a busy time, I imagine, for you covering all the transfer news.
Yeah, thanks for having me, mate. Yeah, pretty busy. It's building up. We still got 4 weeks of the window to go. You know, the PSR deadline sort of created a false window, didn't it, when everything was happening around. Then at the start of last month, wasn't it? So that created like that false window where everyone's getting excited, and then it's plateaued out. We've still got a month to go, so plenty of ins and outs still to do in the Premier League. A lot of ins and outs to do in the Premier League.
Yeah, for sure. Just wanted to get your take, really, first of all, Graeme, on Forest, because, you know, the last 2 seasons have been really interesting. Forest signing 30 players, being given that title, really. What have you made to almost this kind of summer's recruitment? Because it seems a lot more strategic and kind of set up, doesn't it?
Yeah, you know, I think I'm a big believer in recruitment on and off the pitch. I think you're getting it right off the pitch now as well. With the various off-field staff, including Ross Wilson, who I've got a lot of respect for. Got a very good manager, Nuno, who I think not every Forest fan appreciated him coming in to replace Steve Cooper, but I think he was an upgrade. And so they begin to get things right, and you know, the summer so far looks pretty positive for me. So far, I've always been a huge fan of Milinkovic, the centre half. I think him next to Murillo promises to be a fine duo. Jota Silva, you know, he's a player I've been writing a lot about since December time when I was first brought to my attention. A very good player. I think he's going to be. If I was picking my signs of the summer so far, he'd be up there in the Premier League. I think he's hugely exciting. We know that Forest wanted a couple of wingers, and they're getting the business done with him. And obviously Elliot Anderson's come in from Newcastle, who's a player I've long appreciated. Didn't really get to looking at Newcastle, but obviously, you know, Forest have used PSR very nicely to bring him in, move the Greek goalkeeper to Newcastle. And yeah, obviously, you know, we've seen a couple of guys, Mangala, etc., move to Lyon, but you got good fees for both those players, and I think it's a pretty sensible summer so far. It's sensible, but with a sprinkling of excitement on top is the way I'd discuss Forest. It's been sensible, which is nice to hear for any Forest fan, given what you've been through the last 2 years. But there is some excitement there as well. Some very good additions to the squad.
Yeah, for sure. I think all Forest fans didn't want 30 players being signed again. What do you make to Jota Silva? You obviously, you talk about there that you've followed him quite closely. How did that deal kind of come about from your understanding, and also just what you make of him as a player? Because he is very highly rated and he comes from the Portuguese kind of setup, which Forest have got a lot of links with at the minute as well.
Yes, Brazilian, Portuguese. Forest are doing very well in that market. He's a very good player. He can bring everything from out wide to centrally. He's not exactly like his namesake, Jota at Liverpool. He plays more out wide, can play the flank, but has an eye for goal. He's a very good player. He's exactly what you want in a wide man. He's got physicality with him. You know, Portugal are very good at producing these wings, aren't they? The ones who can attack out wide, come in and have a shot. He's not afraid of physicality, which is why I think he'll be a real option in the Premier League. Yeah, very exciting, very good player who I think will have a major say on this Forest campaign.
Yeah, and I wanted to also touch on, a player that's been linked. There was a lot of reports actually last night. There was some mixed reports saying that he was very close and then it wasn't, with Ramon Sosa being linked. What do you make of him as a player, and do you know anything more on that, really?
Yeah, Ramon Sosa, as I said, I love the Raymond bit. It's very much a Midlands
Isn't it?
Raymond coming in. Yeah, Ramon Sosa, yeah, very good player. I know there's been a lot of links to different clubs, etc. He's a very good player. Really is exciting. Forest are very much at the front of the queue for him. They really are. They like him. Talks progressing. Not as we know, especially in this window, nothing's done until it's done. Sure, Forest weren't happy about the news that they're interested in him coming out. But it's such is life when people like me always trying to reveal stuff. So, yeah, but he's a class act, and that'll be that ideally for them is the two they wanted. They wanted two wide men. And I think it might be. I think they will get Sosa. I do. As we sit here now today talking, I think Sosa's likely to be that second one, more than likely.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. And do you think he's what almost Forest need? A bit of flair, power, a bit of almost that quality on the wing, because we've got Anthony Lango, we've got Callum Hudson-Odoi, but sometimes just in football, injuries and everything like that. So Forest need that squad depth sometimes as well.
Yeah, they do, and they need to put pressure on Lango and Hudson-Odoi in fits and starts. There probably wasn't two more frustrating players than them two, because on the day, like if you saw Anthony Lango's performance at, I think it was Newcastle away, for instance, which to be fair, the whole Forest team played well there. But if you saw Lango on that day where he took Newcastle to the cleaners, you thought, how are the top? How is he not back at United or something? No, he was outstanding, but there's not enough of those days, which is why United fans would argue that's why he's at Forest in the first place. There wasn't enough of that. So I think it's in terms of now, I think Forest, and this has happened with quite a few teams in this window, the likes of Arsenal, Liverpool. It's a matter of quality over quantity now, which it was always going to be that. For Forest, you couldn't get more quantity, but now it's in terms of quality. They're bringing in these players to put pressure on the players. Hudson-Odoi was good last season, but again frustrating, I imagine, in quite large chunks as well. And that's what you're doing. You're building a squad now. You've stayed in the Premier League. You've avoided relegation. That's where you need to build now, and that's what the club are doing.
Yeah. Also wanted to talk about Ross Wilson. You mentioned him at the start of the podcast, saying how you had a lot of respect for him. What do you kind of make to him? Because when he came into Forest, there was a lot of criticism from some Rangers fans, but he kind of seems to be heading up this new recruitment approach, if you like, for Forest.
Well, I'll tell you, if you're any Rangers fans with any common sense, if Ross Wilson was still at Rangers now, you wouldn't be looking at all these Celtic titles. That's for sure. Ross Wilson is a fantastic director, fantastic person. He knows the footballing world so well in England and in Scotland and in Europe. He's hugely respected. I am biased. I like Ross. I know him. But his CV's there for everyone to sell. Everyone's saying about that time at Rangers. Look at his time at Rangers. Look what he did. Look what he did, Stephen Gerrard. Look what he built when he had likes of Van Bronckhorst coming in. Rangers were getting to European finals on the squad that he built. So then, and as we're saying now, it's easier said than done sometimes. It's not a matter of just being in charge of these big clubs. And so I think he's helped stabilise the club. Not the only one, because I think the owners have realised, they're listening to the right people now, Ross being one of them. And yeah, it's some really exciting times ahead for Forest. I really like some of the business, and I do like the business they've done this summer. I really like some of the business they did previously. So someone like Ibrahim Sangaria, who was a player I really, really liked, and I thought it went under the radar. I think this season could be huge for him. He's an outstanding player, and I think he could really fly this season. Obviously, Danilo and Murillo have caught the eye because they've been brilliant. But, with Nicolas Dominguez, Gibbs White, this Forest squad is full of potential. It really is. It reminds me a bit of like maybe Wolves last year when everyone say, Wolves are going down, where I was never wanted to tip Wolves to go down because I thought the squad suited Gary O'Neill. I think the squad now is starting to suit Nuno. And, Forest, they should be aiming for top 10 at least next season. I think the quality of the squad is that good. But
Yeah, that's
injuries, I still think they're a little bit thin at the back, personally. But the 1 to 11, I think, is up there with more with anything. Anything outside the top 6, I would say Forest are starting to get there.
Can you see any players outgoing? There was lots of links with Murillo. There's still been quite a lot of interest in him with Chelsea, but obviously Forest did well during PSR. And you mentioned the Mangala, the Niakate deals. That helped Forest avoid that kind of PSR deadline. And there's always links with Morgan, Gibbs White. But do you expect those two almost influential key players to stay at Forest, Graeme?
Yeah, and obviously it's Nico Williams who's linked as well.
Yeah.
Done a piece on Gibbs White yesterday, on Thursday as we're recording, about them not expecting him to go. They're wanting. It would take an absolute massive offer to get Gibbs White out. We know there's interest there because he's a wonderful, wonderful talent. I think the expectation is that he stays this summer. With Murillo, they see Murillo in the same bracket as a Jared Branthwaite, what Everton see him as, the same as a Fofana. So if someone wants Murillo, you're going to have to pay 70-75 million to get him. They think he's one of the best young centre-halves in Europe. The club's looking at him too as well. So I think that's a fair approach to look at it, isn't it? If someone come in with that money, could Forest say no? Probably not. If someone comes in with 60 million for Gibbs White, a club record for Forest, would they say no to that? Be tough. But obviously Nuno doesn't want him to go. The hierarchy don't want him to go. And Gibbs White isn't agitating for this move. He's just a very good player. We know, I've been on quite a few Newcastle podcasts recently, and I think he'd be ideal for Newcastle. I do. Not that I think he'll go there, but he's the sort of player who could improve them as well. I believe they did speak to him as part of the Anderson stuff, etc., but he wasn't on the menu for them. So I think there's a very, very good chance that Gibbs White and Murillo stay. There is interest, obviously. It's a long month ahead, but Forest are not looking to let them go. The players aren't agitating, so I think there's a very good chance that both stay.
What did you make to that Elliot Anderson swap deal? Because there was a lot of Forest fans were shocked really at that fee, and then it kind of came out that it actually wasn't that much, and then Forest managed to kind of ship Vlachodimos the other way for, it was reported, around 20 million.
Yeah, it should be arrest warrants issued for Ross Wilson and the Forest hierarchy, because they've absolutely robbed Newcastle on this deal. To get, for Vlachodimos to be valued at more than Elliot Anderson, it's just staggering, really. Elliot Anderson is a brilliant young player. Yeah, he hasn't hit the heights yet, but his ceiling is massive. He's a fantastic talent, and Newcastle would be good to, because they're letting a young product go from the system. So, and the PSR is to blame. It's a horrible system. Letting your own talent go is not the way forward for anyone in the Premier League. But Anderson is a brilliant deal, and basically Forest making money on that deal. It's just staggering, isn't it? For what was he, his third choice goalkeeper? He would be lucky to get on the bench this season. Staggeringly good deal from Forest. It really was.
Wanted to also mention Nico Williams. I can remember seeing your reports originally on him, Graeme, and there was interest there. Do you think that's died down now? Can you see Nico Williams leaving, or do you think he'll be part of Forest plans again going forward?
Yeah, he was always part of the plans. Obviously, he attracted interest. I think he had a quietly very good season last season. Nico Williams. He ticks an awful lot of boxes. If clubs are looking for a right wing back and you're going through ticking off what you want into pace, commitment, tackling, etc., he does tick a lot of boxes, literally, if you're doing it that way. So there was some interest for us, not showing any ambitions to let him go, but there was interest there, which I think is positive for Forest fans, knowing that they can fend off interest in these players as well. So you have to take that as a positive. So no, I don't. I think I put Williams in the same bracket as Murillo and Gibbs White. Interest there, but I don't think he'll be going anywhere.
Interesting. And also about the goalkeepers, Aaron Ramsdale being linked. Was that substantial? Were Forest interested in him? Because it seems like we've signed an awful lot of goalkeepers. We've got Matt Sells and then Carlos Miguel as well.
Yeah, Miguel isn't being loaned out, because I think there was some suspicion, especially for Forest fans, that he might be loaned out once he arrived. From what I'm hearing, they do want another goalkeeper, and there's some good ones available interesting that Sam Johnston. I think there'll be pieces. Got a piece come out today. Sam Johnston is wanted. And I think he's looking to leave Palace. He's got Dean Henderson there who finished the season brilliantly. So he's not wanting to play number 2 to him. And Aaron Ramsdale will be available. And he will be available on loan, we believe. So is Aaron Ramsdale an upgrade on Sells and Miguel? Yes, he is. I think Forest. I think if nothing was there for Forest, I think they wouldn't do it. They'd go with Matt Sells, who's a decent keeper. Don't get me wrong, he's decent. But I think if there's that opportunity to upgrade to a Ramsdale, maybe even a Sam Johnston, I think Forest will take it. It's a sensible way of doing things.
Yeah, and also, I suppose it fits with the club's kind of mentality of moving forward, of becoming a Premier League established side. I mean, it would be a great signing. Talk about the name of Aaron Ramsdale at Forest as well.
Well, they put 2 England nationals available. I think Ramsdale would jump at the chance to move to Forest. I really do. As would Sam Johnston. So, keep an eye on the goalkeeping situations. It's going to be interesting. I think, as I said, I don't think Forest would be too upset if they start the season with Matt Sells, but because they've got Miguel pushing as well. But I think if they could upgrade that position, they'll do it.
And just finally, before I kind of get your thoughts on Forest season, Graeme, almost can you see? I suppose actually, can you see Forest this season? You mentioned pushing for top 10, but can you see us really in the next few seasons becoming? There's the ownership have plans to improve the stadium. Can you see Forest becoming almost one of the teams that everyone expects to be in the Premier League? You can't, you don't think that Forest will be in a relegation battle this season, especially we won't have a points deduction as well.
Clearly that's the hope for Forest going forward. To become an established Premier League team again. Is with every team like this. There's going to be. I thought it would be a bit harder this season with teams coming up. I must admit, I thought Leeds would come up, didn't. So the teams who've come up: Ipswich, Southampton, and Leicester. I was expecting a little bit more. I think they are better than the teams who went down. Don't get me wrong, but I still expect 2 of them to go back down, which makes life a little bit easier for the teams like Forest, who and I'm not saying Forest will be involved in a relegation battle, but any team outside the top 7 downwards can get dragged in. We've seen that, It's really imperative for Forest to get off to a good start to the season, and I think they've got a golden opportunity. Them first 3 games are very winnable, really are. So Forest, Forest should be. Hey, you should be top 4 by the end of August. You really should be. So let's see how we start. It's a fascinating, way to get going, I think. But it'll be interesting to see how you compete with Bournemouth on that opening day, because they're probably a similar type of team who probably further ahead in their journey at the moment. With the manager's been in a bit longer and they finished the season well. But I say I think around about 10 to 12 will be the aim for next season, Max. I think anything better than that is going to be a bonus. But I think, as I said, Forest are now setting themselves up to become a Premier League team. Everything's in place. It's a huge club, and I think they've got the right manager in there, Nuno, to do it. And as I say, that they've managed to steer themselves away from that. I was going to say, pardon the comments, but it's like that lunatic fringe of what the owners were looking like the Chelseas of the world, but they've managed to back themselves up. And I think it's huge credit to the owners. They've really taken on board what the fans have said. They've taken on board what the media have said without a total 180. But they've brought it together, keeping the same attitude and beliefs, but refining what they were doing, and I think that's been really, really positive. And it's all pointing in one direction. Yeah, it's going to be a slog. It really is. If you lose those first 3 games, it's going to be a slog. There's going to be times when they are under pressure, and I think Nuno's got the backing of these owners, where if you do lose 3 or 4 games in a row, don't think they're necessarily going to kick him out the door, which I think for the fans as well is a positive. You don't want to see your manager under pressure straight away. Well, depends if you like him. But obviously, the way Forest came together last season as well with all that off-field stuff as well, I think that really brought the club together. I think it brought the fan. You can tell me more, Max, but I know there was that Cooper element of not wanting to lose him against the Cooper element who wanted him to go, who were back in Nuno. But that off-field, it seemed to bring Forest as a fan base together, and I think the owners have embraced that.
Yeah, definitely. I think the fan base is together. I think it helped. I think almost the points deduction in a way was maybe, you could argue, if you look back on it in a few years, is a bit of a blessing in disguise, because it, as you just alluded to, it helped the fans come together. It was similar to the Everton situation, really, Graeme, where their fans were kind of turning out in numbers. Not that Forest weren't doing that, but it was more and more, and the support away from home, following the club away from home, it was phenomenal. And the fans really were, to use the cliche, the 12th man, and brought them over the line. So, long may it continue. And just quickly, actually, Graeme, wanted to ask you, because I completely forgot about Taiwo Awoniyi, because there was some reports he missed the start of pre-season due to some family issues, which was originally reported. But there's been a few other reports that Forest would consider offers for him. Do you expect him to go, or do you think a player of Taiwo and his strength and his ability up front, that Forest will keep hold of him?
Obviously, he's a talented player. There's no getting away from that. Obviously, there was comments at the end of last season, wasn't there, about him talking about wanting away, which didn't go down well. Forest have put a lot of belief into him. I think there's a chance that he could go, but he's not. He wouldn't be cheap for anyone. I think Forest are looking in the market for a forward. I don't think they would let him go unless they had a ready-made replacement in there. I think it is something that they're looking at. But they know he's a talent, a big talent, really, untapped in many ways still. So, do I see him leaving? Possibly. Depends how they get on with their other forward targets. So we'll see the goalkeepers sorted out. We'll see the wingers sorted out. I think let's see what becomes available, because this month, even now, we'll see new players become available, etc., and see what's out there. Strikers are expensive. We know that, and I don't think Taylor would be easily replaced. So I don't think there'll be a knee-jerk reaction. But if someone comes up who they like, who Nuno likes, Ross and the board like, they might do it and then allow Taylor to go. But it's easier said than done, getting these players out. I haven't heard too much. I think there's been a little bit in Germany, taking him back there, a little bit of Saudi, but nothing massive. I don't think Forest are pushing him out the door. Anyway, I think they believe there's a big talent there, and they'd be more than happy to go in the season with him competing to start up front.
Yeah, we'll take that Taiwo up front. I think a lot of Forest fans will be happy that he's staying, and obviously Chris Wood to provide that depth as well, and him being a key player last season. Right, I think that does us nicely. Graeme, thanks very much. Really appreciate it, and enjoy the Premier League season. I can't believe it's come round so quickly. Really,
it is. Look, a bit quicker for me for Middlesbrough next week. Yeah, we're a little over a week. We're a little over a week away from another. An exhausting championship season, but appreciate the time, and anytime, just let me know.
Yes, nice one. Fingers crossed Middlesbrough do well. Fingers crossed for you. Right, that does us nicely. Give us a like, share and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us across Spotify and Apple Podcast if you've enjoyed. Thanks for all the comments if you've been watching live on Facebook, Nottingham Forest News, and YouTube, Garibaldi Red. Max and Mark will be back next week because I'm off on holiday. So they're covering me while I'm away. And we've got a few other bits and pieces before the season starts. But from me and Graeme, take care and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.